The distress beacon cut through the silence of the Galactic Council's emergency chamber like a blade through silk. Ambassador Zarthek's 4 eyes widened as the translation matrix processed the desperate plea echoing from the speakers. "This is Captain Velnari of the Cathari Defense Fleet. Our colonies on the Rim worlds are under attack. The Devourers have returned. We need immediate military assistance. Our shields are failing. Millions will die. Please, anyone who can hear this, we are requesting aid under the Galactic Mutual Defense Treaty." The massive chamber fell silent. Representatives from dozens of species sat frozen in their seats, their various forms of faces showing the same expression of dread. The Devourers. The name alone sent waves of terror through civilized space. Councillor Threnak of the Aquatic Union was the first to speak, his gills fluttering with anxiety. "The Devourers were supposed to be contained in the dead zone. How did they break free?" "That matters less than what we do now," replied Ambassador Hickstra, her insect-like mandibles clicking nervously. "The Cathari colonies house over 50 million civilians, but who has ships capable of fighting the Devourers? Their bioships can tear through our strongest hulls like paper." Around the chamber, representatives exchanged worried glances. The Galactic Council commanded vast resources, but the Devourers were different. They were a plague species, consuming everything organic in their path. Their ships were living creatures the size of mountains, armed with weapons that could strip the flesh from planets. "The Velkari battle fleet is 3 sectors away," offered General Mortis of the Reptilian Systems, but even their dreadnoughts couldn't hold the line at Kepler Station. The Devourers adapted to their weapons within hours. "What about the Crystalline Collective? Their energy weapons have proved effective before," suggested another voice. "The Collective's fleet is defending their home systems. They lost 40 ships in the last engagement and refused to risk more," came the dejected reply. As the debate continued, desperation grew thick in the air. The Cathari had been faithful allies to the Council for over 2 centuries. They had provided medical aid during the plague years, offered their agricultural expertise during the famine crisis, and their scientists had helped develop the quantum communication networks that held the galaxy together. Now they were calling for help, and the Council was failing them. Ambassador Zarthek's communication device chimed softly. He glanced at it, expecting another report from his homeworld. Instead, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. An intercept of the Cathari distress signal had been logged by the automated systems, but the signature showed it had been received not just by Council members, but by ships in a previously unmapped sector. "Honored Councilors," he said, standing slowly, "I'm receiving reports that the distress signal has been intercepted by vessels in Sector 7749. That region was marked as uninhabitable in our star charts." "Sector 7749, Councillor Threnak's voice carried confusion. "Our surveys showed that system contains a single G-type star with several planets, but the worlds were classified as death worlds. Extreme gravity, violent weather, dangerous fauna. No intelligent life could evolve there." The communication console began blinking with an incoming transmission. The tech officer, a nervous Zentaurian with 6 arms, operated the controls with visible confusion. "Sirs, I'm receiving a response transmission. The signal is coming from the Deathworld system, 3rd planet from the star. The beings identify themselves as humans?" A hush fell over the chamber. In all their centuries of exploration, the Council had catalogued thousands of species, but none from death worlds. Planets with gravity over 1.2 standard, with violent weather systems and predators that could hunt sapients, were considered uninhabitable by definition. "Put the transmission through," ordered Councillor Threnak. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a bipedal creature unlike anything in the Council's databases. It stood upright on 2 legs, with pale skin and hair covering the top of its head. Most disturbing were its eyes, forward-facing predator's eyes, not the side-mounted organs of civilized prey species. When it spoke, Its voice was calm, but carried an undertone that made several representatives shiver. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We've received the Cathari distress call. We understand you're dealing with a devourer incursion." Ambassador Zarthek found his voice first. "Greetings, Admiral Chen. I am Ambassador Zarthek of the Galactic Council. We were not aware of any sentient species in your system. How many ships can you contribute to the defense effort?" The human's mouth curved upward in what appeared to be some sort of expression. "Ambassador, we don't operate under the same fleet structures as your council, but we can offer assistance. How many Devourer ships are we looking at?" "Long-range sensors show approximately 200 bioships converging on the Cathari system," replied General Mortus. "Each ship is over 5 kilometers in length. Their weapons can break through any known shielding technology. Our greatest war fleets have been decimated trying to stop them." The human admiral paused for a moment, seeming to listen to someone off-screen. "Understood. We'll dispatch our response fleet immediately. Our ships should reach the Cathari system in approximately 72 hours. "Admiral," interrupted Counselor Threnak urgently, "you must understand the nature of what you're facing. The Devourers are not like ordinary hostile species. They consume organic matter to fuel their ships and reproduce. Their hulls adapt to energy weapons. They've destroyed entire civilizations." "We appreciate the warning, Counselor. Humanity has experience dealing with adaptive hostiles. We'll handle it." Before anyone could respond, the transmission cut out. The chamber erupted in voices as representatives argued over what had just transpired. Some called it foolish bravado. Others wondered if these humans understood what they were volunteering for. "A single species responding to a crisis that has stumped our entire alliance," muttered Ambassador Hickstra. "Either they're incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." 3 sectors away, Captain Velnari watched his tactical display with growing despair. The Devourer fleet had reached the outer planets of his system. Cathari colony ships were fleeing toward the inner worlds, but they wouldn't outrun the bioships for long. His own fleet of 12 cruisers was all that stood between the swarm and 50 million civilians. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They say a response fleet is coming." "How many ships?" Velnari asked without taking his eyes from the display. "The message doesn't specify numbers, sir. Just that the Terran Defense Force is responding to our call for aid." "Terrans? I've never heard of them." His tactical officer, Lieutenant Kexandra, pulled up star charts on her console. "I'm not finding any record of the Terran systems in our databases, Captain, but sensors are detecting quantum wake signatures approaching from Galactic West. Whatever's coming, it's big." On the main screen, the Devourer bioships were spreading out like a plague across the system. Each one was a living nightmare. Organic hulls that pulsed with unholy light, tentacle-like weapon arrays that could reach across thousands of kilometers, and most terrifying of all, their adaptation capability. Every weapon fired at them only made them stronger. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "the lead Devourer ships are beginning their assault on Cathari Prime's outer defenses. The orbital platforms are returning fire, but their energy beams are being absorbed and integrated." Velnari closed his eyes for a moment. In 300 years of spaceflight, the Cathari had never faced an enemy like this. Their philosophy of peaceful cooperation and scientific advancement hadn't prepared them for creatures that existed only to consume and destroy. "Captain!" The communications officer's voice carried excitement. "I'm detecting massive quantum signatures entering the system. These aren't like any ship configurations I've seen before." On the edge of the system, space began to ripple. The familiar blue-white flashes of quantum gate exits lit up the darkness. But the signatures were wrong. Too many. Too large. Too powerful. "Get me a count," ordered Velnari. "Sir, I'm reading. This can't be right. Sensors show over 1,000 contacts. Each one is broadcasting Terran Defense Force identification codes. 1,000 ships? Velnari whispered. The entire Cathari defense fleet only numbered 30 vessels. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. Audio only. Put it through. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in accented but understandable galactic standard. Cathari vessels, this is Admiral Chen aboard the TDF Indomitable. We're here in response to your distress call. Please maintain your current positions and prepare for combat operations. The cavalry has arrived. Lieutenant Kexandra looked up from her console, her face pale with shock. Captain, I'm analyzing the quantum signatures of the Terran ships. The energy readings, they're not possible. Each one of these vessels is outputting more power than our entire fleet combined. What kind of species builds ships like that? Wondered the communications officer. Velnari stared at the tactical display where 1,000 new contacts were moving into formation with military precision. Whatever these humans were, they had heard the call for aid and answered with a force that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. I don't know, he replied quietly, but I think we're about to find out. The Devourer fleet had noticed the new arrivals. Their bioships were turning away from their assault on the inner planets, reorganizing to face this unexpected threat. For the first time in decades, the Devourers encountered something that gave them pause. In the depths of space, two forces prepared for battle. One was a plague of living destruction that had consumed dozens of worlds. The other was an unknown fleet from a species that called a Deathworld home. The galaxy held its breath. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TDF Indomitable, watching the tactical display with the calm confidence that came from 3 decades of military service. Around her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements sharp and precise. Unlike the elegant flowing designs of council ships, human vessels were built for war, angular, armored, and bristling with weapons. Admiral, we're detecting 212 Devourer bioships, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson, his fingers dancing across his console. Mass displacement suggests each one is between 4 and 6 kilometers in length. They're moving to intercept our fleet. Acknowledged. What's our force composition? 1,237 ships, ma'am. 53 battleships, 149 heavy cruisers, 380 destroyers, and 635 frigates. All ships report combat ready. Chen nodded. The response fleet represented nearly a third of humanity's active military forces. But when the distress call had reached Earth, the decision had been unanimous. Humanity remembered what it was like to face extinction. They would not stand by and watch it happen to others. Communications, patch me through to the Cathari command vessel. Channel open, Admiral. Captain Velnari, this is Admiral Chen. We're moving to engage the Devourer fleet. I need your ships to fall back to the inner system and coordinate civilian evacuations. This is about to get very messy. On his bridge, Captain Velnari stared at the human fleet formation. The ships moved with a precision that spoke of countless hours of drill and training. But what struck him most was their apparent disregard for conventional tactics. Instead of maintaining safe distances and using long-range weapons like civilized forces, the humans were accelerating directly toward the Devourer swarm. Admiral Chen, he transmitted back, our tactical analysis suggests the Devourers will adapt to your weapons within minutes of first contact. Standard energy weapons have proven ineffective. Perhaps a more cautious approach. Captain, the human admiral's voice cut through his suggestion. We appreciate your concern. But humans don't really do cautious. Stand by and watch. The lead elements of the human fleet were now within range of the Devourer bioships. The alien creatures responded as they always did, extending their organic weapon arrays and firing streams of corrosive bioplasma that could melt through the strongest known alloys. Instead of raising energy shields like any sensible species, the human ships did something unprecedented. They fired back with solid projectiles. "They're using kinetic weapons," whispered Lieutenant Kexandra from her station on the Cathari Bridge. "Metal slugs accelerated to near light speed. That's primitive." What wasn't primitive was the effect. The railgun rounds punched through devourer hulls like they were made of paper. The bioships, designed to absorb and adapt to energy attacks, had no defense against simple kinetic force. Chunks of organic matter exploded into space as the human weapons tore massive holes in their targets. But the humans were just getting started. Admiral Chen watched the first exchange with satisfaction. "Target the larger bioships with nuclear torpedoes. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta 7. Across the human fleet, missile tubes opened and launched their deadly cargo. Nuclear weapons, banned by every civilized species in the galaxy as too horrific for use in space combat, streaked toward the Devourer formation. The bioships attempted to intercept them with defensive fire, but the humans had anticipated this. Each torpedo was accompanied by a cloud of decoy drones and electronic countermeasures. The first nuclear detonation lit up the system like a miniature star. The Devourer bioship at the center of the blast simply ceased to exist, vaporized by temperatures that matched stellar cores. The ships around it writhed and screamed across electromagnetic frequencies as radiation burned through their organic hulls. Captain Velnari watched in stunned silence as the humans systematically dismantled the Devourer fleet. Where his people and every other council species had failed for decades, these Deathworlders were succeeding in minutes. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving data bursts from the human fleet. They're sharing their tactical information with us." The data painted a picture that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. The humans didn't fight like civilized beings. They fought like the apex predators of their death world. No elegant energy weapons, no sophisticated defense screens, just overwhelming firepower delivered with brutal efficiency. "Look at this," Lieutenant Kexandra called out, studying the shared data. "They're not just using nuclear weapons. They have something called antimatter charges, and these planet cracker missiles. What kind of species builds weapons that can destroy worlds?" "The kind that comes from a world that's been trying to kill them since they evolved," Velnari replied quietly. He was beginning to understand why these humans had been unknown to the galaxy. They weren't just another species that had achieved spaceflight. They were weapons themselves, forged by a planet so hostile that only the most adaptable and ruthless could survive. Back in the battle, the Devourers were adapting to the kinetic weapons as expected. Their hulls began thickening, growing armor plating that could deflect the railgun rounds. But every time they adapted, the humans switched tactics. "Admiral, the bioships are hardening against kinetic weapons," reported Commander Jackson. "Noted. All ships, switch to fusion lances. Target their adaptation nodes." The human fleet's weapons arrays reconfigured themselves with mechanical precision. Beams of pure fusion fire lanced out, striking specific points on the Devourer bioships that the humans had identified as critical systems. When the bioships adapted to those, the humans switched to particle beams, then to plasma cannons, then to weapons the Cathari had never seen before. "They have dozens of different weapon types," Lieutenant Kexandra reported in amazement. "Every time the Devourers adapt to one, they switch to another. How do they power all these systems?" Her answer came when the human battleship Indomitable fired its main guns. The massive vessel lit up like a star as it channeled the full output of its fusion reactors into a single devastating blast. The beam punched clean through 3 Devourer bioships in a row, leaving smoking holes where vital organs used to be. "They're using their reactor cores as weapons," Velnari whispered. "These humans are insane." But there was method to their madness. As the battle progressed, it became clear that the humans weren't just randomly switching weapons. They were systematically testing the Devourer's adaptation capabilities, probing for weaknesses, and exploiting every vulnerability they found. The turning point came when the Devourers attempted their most terrifying tactic. Several bioships merged together, forming a massive superorganism over 20 kilometers long. The creature began consuming the wreckage of destroyed ships, growing larger and more powerful with each passing minute. "Admiral," Commander Jackson's voice carried concern for the first time, "that thing is off the scale. It's showing power readings equivalent to a small moon." Chen smiled coldly. "Perfect. Fire the Ragnarok device." Across the fleet, human weapons fell silent. In the sudden quiet, a single ship moved forward, a vessel smaller than the others, painted matte black and bristling with sensor arrays. It approached the massive Devourer superorganism without firing a shot. "What are they doing?" Velnari asked. He got his answer when space itself seemed to tear open around the Devourer creature. The Ragnarok device didn't use conventional physics. It created a localized distortion in space-time, generating gravitational forces that could crush matter at the atomic level. The superorganism folded in on itself, compressed into a point of infinite density before winking out of existence. The remaining Devourer bioships turned and fled. "All ships, pursuit course," ordered Admiral Chen. "Don't let any of them escape. We don't want them reporting back to their hive minds about our capabilities." The human fleet transformed from a disciplined battle line into a pack of hunters. Their ships, designed for endurance and long-range operations, began chasing down the fleeing bioships with relentless determination. One by one, the Devourers were cornered and destroyed. Within 6 hours, it was over. 212 Devourer bioships had entered the system. None left alive. Captain Velnari received a transmission from Admiral Chen as the human fleet began collecting debris and scanning for survivors. "Captain, the immediate threat has been neutralized. We're deploying medical vessels to assist with refugee care and engineering ships to help rebuild your orbital defenses." "Admiral," Velnari managed to find his voice, "in 3 centuries of space travel, no one has ever defeated a Devourer fleet this decisively. How is this possible?" There was a pause before Chen responded, and when she did, her voice carried a weight that spoke of long experience with violence. "Captain, you have to understand something about humanity. We come from what your people call a death world, but we call it home. For millions of years, our planet tried to kill us with ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators, plagues, and natural disasters that would break most species. We survived by becoming the most dangerous thing on our world." She paused, looking out at the debris field that had once been an unstoppable swarm. "When we reached the stars, we discovered that the rest of the galaxy had evolved on gentle worlds, protected by stable climates and natural barriers from their own predators. You built your civilizations on cooperation and peaceful coexistence because that's what your worlds taught you." "And your world taught you war," Velnari said quietly. "Our world taught us survival. War is just what happens when survival is threatened. Your Devourers are dangerous because they've never faced anything more dangerous than themselves. But, Captain, there's something you need to understand about humans." "What's that, Admiral?" "We are the thing that even death worlds fear." As the human fleet began its cleanup operations, medical vessels and engineering ships moved among the Cathari colonies, providing aid with the same efficient precision they had used to wage war. The refugees stared in wonder at their rescuers, bipedal beings who had emerged from the darkness of space like ancient legends of guardian angels. But these angels carried weapons that could crack planets and had just demonstrated why their homeworld had forged them into the ultimate predators. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest export wasn't technology or culture. It was applied violence, delivered with surgical precision to those who threatened the innocent. and they had just announced their arrival on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. 3 weeks after the Battle of Cathari Prime, the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with an energy unlike anything seen in decades. Representatives from every major species had gathered for an emergency session, and the topic was singular: humanity. Ambassador Zarthek stood at the central podium, his 4 eyes scanning the packed chamber. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, he had never witnessed such a mixture of awe, fear, and curiosity radiating from his colleagues. "Honored representatives," he began, "we gathered today to address the implications of recent events in the Cathari system. As you are all aware, the species known as humanity has demonstrated capabilities that fundamentally challenge our understanding of galactic warfare, diplomacy, and perhaps civilization itself." A murmur rippled through the chamber. In the past 3 weeks, every intelligence service in the galaxy had been working overtime, trying to understand what humanity represented. The results were both fascinating and terrifying. Counselor Threnak of the Aquatic Union was the first to speak. "Ambassador, our analysis of the battle recordings shows that the humans employed weapons systems banned by every civilized species. Nuclear weapons, antimatter devices, and something they called a space-time distortion device. How do we even begin diplomatic relations with beings who casually use planet-killing weapons?" "More concerning," added Ambassador Hickstra, "is their apparent comfort with such violence. Our psychological profiles suggest that most species require extensive conditioning to overcome natural inhibitions against killing. These humans seem to experience no such hesitation." From the observer section came a new voice. Admiral Chen had arrived on Galactic Council Station the previous day, along with a small diplomatic delegation. Unlike the flowing robes and ceremonial garments worn by other species, the humans dressed in simple, practical uniforms that spoke of function over form. "If I may address the Council," Admiral Chen said, standing with military bearing, "I believe there are some misunderstandings about humanity that should be clarified." Counselor Threnak gestured for her to continue, though his gills fluttered with nervous energy. "First, regarding our weapons systems. Yes, we use nuclear devices and antimatter charges, but understand that these technologies were developed not for conquest, but for survival. Our solar system contains asteroid belts that regularly threaten our worlds. We've been using nuclear charges to redirect dangerous objects for over 2 centuries. What you call weapons of mass destruction, we call tools for planetary defense." She paused, letting this sink in before continuing. "Second, you mention our comfort with violence. This requires context. Earth, our homeworld, has a unique characteristic. Unlike your peaceful garden worlds, Earth is what we call an active planet. Volcanic eruptions, earthquake swarms, ice ages, magnetic pole reversals, asteroid impacts, and supervolcanic events occur with regularity. We didn't develop weapons to fight each other initially. We developed them to fight our planet." Dr. Kamal Hassan, humanity's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward. "Counselors, if I may share some data about human evolution that might provide clarity." A holographic display activated, showing the blue and green marble of Earth rotating slowly in the chamber's center. Earth has experienced 5 major extinction events in its history. Each time, over 70% of all life forms died. The species that survived were those that could adapt quickly, reproduce rapidly, and overcome extreme challenges. Humans are the descendants of survivors. The display zoomed in to show various Earth creatures: sharks that had remained unchanged for millions of years, cockroaches that could survive nuclear radiation, and tardigrades that could live in the vacuum of space. But humans are unique even among Earth life forms. We survived by developing intelligence, cooperation, and tool use. When our planet entered ice ages, we learned to make fire and clothing. When predators threatened us, we learned to craft weapons. When diseases spread, we developed medicine. Every challenge Earth presented, humanity met with innovation. General Mortis of the reptilian systems leaned forward in his seat. Dr. Hassan, are you saying that humans are naturally more violent than other species? Not more violent, General. More adaptable. Violence is simply one tool in our survival kit, but so is cooperation, creativity, and compassion. The same humans who destroyed the Devourer fleet are now working around the clock to provide medical aid to Cathari refugees and help rebuild their infrastructure. As if on cue, a Cathari delegate entered the chamber. Captain Velnari, now promoted to Admiral of the Cathari Defense Forces, walked with the careful dignity of someone still processing recent events. "Honored counselors," he said, bowing to the assembly, "I come to provide witness to human actions following their military intervention. In the 3 weeks since the battle, human medical teams have treated over 2 million refugees. Their engineers have helped rebuild our orbital defenses with technology far superior to our original systems, and their supply ships continue delivering food, medicine, and construction materials." He paused, looking directly at Admiral Chen. "But perhaps most importantly, they have asked for nothing in return. No territory, no trade advantages, no political concessions. They came because we asked for help, and they stayed because we needed aid. In 3 centuries of council politics, I have never encountered such selfless action." Ambassador Zarthek felt the mood in the chamber shifting. Fear was giving way to curiosity, and curiosity to something approaching hope. "Admiral Chen," he addressed the human officer, "what does humanity want from the galactic community?" Chen considered the question carefully before responding. "Ambassador, humanity has been alone in the universe for our entire history. We developed our technology, our philosophy, our civilization in isolation. Now we discover we're part of a vast galactic community. What we want is the same thing any species wants: to contribute, to belong, to find our place among the stars." "But surely," interrupted Counselor Threnok, "you must understand how your capabilities concern us. Your weapons technology alone could destabilize the entire galactic balance of power." "Counselor, with respect, the galactic balance of power was already destabilized. The Devourers have been expanding for decades, consuming entire civilizations. Your response was to retreat, build better defenses, and hope they would eventually stop. That's not a solution. That's just managed decline." The truth of her words hung in the air like a challenge. Every representative in the chamber knew she was right. The council had been fighting a losing war of attrition against various threats for generations. Dr. Ba Hassan activated another holographic display, this one showing galactic maps with threat assessments. "Counselors, humanity has been studying galactic history since we first detected your signals. We see patterns that concern us. The Devourers are not your only existential threat. There are indications of other hostile forces in unexplored regions, machine intelligences, energy beings, predator species that make the Devourers look gentle. Your survival strategy has been to build walls and hope threats will pass you by. But walls only work if you have enough time and resources to maintain them. Based on our analysis, the galaxy is approaching a crisis point where passive defense will no longer be sufficient." General Mortis studied the data with growing alarm. "What are you proposing, Doctor?" Admiral Chen stepped forward again. "We're proposing an alliance, not conquest, not domination, partnership. Humanity offers our military capabilities and adaptive technologies. In return, the Council offers us scientific knowledge, cultural exchange, and the chance to be part of something larger than ourselves." But understand, she continued, this offer comes with conditions. We will not stand by and watch civilizations fall to preventable threats. We will not compromise our principles of protecting the innocent, and we will not be bound by treaties that prevent effective action against existential threats. Ambassador Hickstra's mandibles clicked nervously. You're asking us to abandon our commitment to peaceful resolution of conflicts. No, Chen replied firmly. I'm asking you to recognize that peaceful resolution requires all parties to be willing to be peaceful. The devourers, the machine intelligences, the predator species, they don't negotiate. They consume. Against such threats, pacifism isn't morality. It's suicide. The chamber fell silent as representatives processed the implications. Humanity was offering them something unprecedented, effective protection against existential threats. But the price was accepting that their peaceful, diplomatic approach to galactic politics was no longer sufficient. Captain Velnari broke the silence. Counselors, 3 weeks ago, my people faced extinction. The Council's response was well-intentioned but inadequate. Humanity's response was immediate and decisive. 50 million Cathari civilians are alive today because humans were willing to do what needed to be done. He looked around the chamber with earnest conviction. I have seen humans at war, and I have seen them at peace. In war, they are terrifying in their efficiency. In peace, they are compassionate beyond measure. They are not the monsters we feared. They are the guardians the galaxy has needed. Over the following hours, debates raged across the chamber. Some species worried about human aggression. Others questioned whether the galaxy was ready for such a radical shift in defense philosophy. But gradually, consensus began to emerge. The universe was a dangerous place, and it was getting more dangerous. Humanity offered hope. The hope that civilized species could survive and thrive rather than simply endure. When the final vote was tallied, the decision was nearly unanimous. Humanity would be granted emergency membership in the Galactic Council with full military cooperation agreements. As Admiral Chen signed the historic accords, she reflected on how much had changed since that first distress call. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors or supplicants, but as protectors. Admiral, Ambassador Zarthek said quietly as the ceremony concluded, there is something I must ask. Your ships, your weapons, your tactics, they are far in advance of anything we possessed. How long have humans been preparing for this kind of warfare? Chen smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Ambassador, humans have been preparing for this kind of warfare since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what might be looking back. Every human child learns our history, how we survived ice ages and plagues, how we defended ourselves against predators and natural disasters, how we learned that the universe doesn't care about our hopes and dreams. She gestured toward the viewing ports where human ships could be seen patrolling alongside Council vessels. We didn't become warriors because we wanted to. We became warriors because the universe demanded it. And now that we've found others worth protecting, we'll never stop. In the months that followed, human technology began flowing to Council worlds. Medical advances that could extend lifespans by centuries. Engineering techniques that could build cities on hostile worlds. Agricultural methods that could feed entire civilizations. But more than technology, humanity brought something the galaxy had been losing. Hope. Hope that threats could be overcome rather than endured. Hope that civilization could expand rather than merely survive. Hope that calling for aid would bring help, not excuses. The Devourers had awakened something in the galaxy that had been sleeping for too long. They had forced an isolated species to reveal itself, and in doing so, had given every peaceful civilization a chance at a future free from fear. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.